This old couple runs a small business at home. The old man weaves clothes, and this old woman stitches designs on them. Now, how do you think the old man would transfer the clothes to the old woman? There are two possibilities. Either he could hand transfer it, or he could throw the clothes towards the woman. So, in a bisexual flower, which has both the male and the female reproductive parts, self-pollination takes place, and this type of self-pollination is known as autogamy because it is happening internally within the same flower. Now suppose the small business was expanded. Now there were two specialized units. There was one factory where all the workers manufactured clothes, and there was a second factory where all the women stitched designs on these clothes. Now, since these two factories are at a distance from each other, a transporter is necessary to make the transfers of the clothes. So see, there is a transporter, but in this process, there might be a few loss of clothes in transit. Similarly, birds and insects help in cross-pollination. While sitting on a male flower, pollen grains get stuck onto their body. Now, while transporting, these pollen grains might get dispersed or might be lost in transit. So, advantages of self-pollination over cross-pollination is that it is a sure or a confirmed process of pollination, because cross-pollination is dependent on various transporters like birds, insects, wind. If the direction of wind is not right, then pollination won't take place. So, self-pollination is a surer process of pollination. Another advantage of self-pollination over cross-pollination is that it is a more economically viable process. What do I mean by economically viable? Well, consider cross-pollination. We've seen that in transit, some of the pollen grains might be lost. So, these plants that require cross-pollination for reproduction must manufacture a lot of pollen grains. So a lot of energy is required to make these pollen grains. Whereas in self-pollination, most of the pollen grains from the anther will fall on the stigma of the same flower. So it is a more economically viable process. Now, these are two cross-pollinating flowers which had been planted close to each other. Now, over time, what was seen was this newer variety was eventually formed. So, newer varieties were formed due to cross-pollination. But in case of self-pollination, flowers that undergo self-pollination, the parental generation and the offspring generation, both of them have the same characteristics. No new varieties are formed. So, another advantage of self-pollination over cross-pollination is that the parental characters are preserved in self-pollination. And this is disadvantage in cross-pollination. But one advantage of cross-pollination over self-pollination is that newer varieties are formed in cross-pollination, whereas all the parental characteristics remain in the next generation of flowers that undergo self-pollination. No new varieties are formed. Bugs that infested the garden ate up all the white flowers, but did not eat up these pink flowers because they were sour in taste. Now, what about this new variety that was formed due to cross-pollination? Did they survive? Yes, they survived because they inherited the sour taste from the pink flowers. So, another advantage of cross-pollination over self-pollination is increased survival rate. Because of cross-pollination, all the factors that are beneficial to both the plants are obtained. Now, these characteristics help the plant against unforeseen dangers such as insects. So, cross-pollination increases the survival rate of plants.